Triple H just made the most controversial decision in his entire tenure as head of creative, and if you thought WWE couldn't get any more chaotic, you were dead wrong. Bron Breakker has been terminated, fired, completely cut from WWE following what can only be described as the most vicious, unprovoked, career-ending assault on Adam Pearce that left the WWE official hospitalized and fighting for his career. This isn't just another wrestling storyline, this is real-life consequences for actions that crossed every line imaginable in professional wrestling. The footage that emerged from backstage last Tuesday night shows Bron Breakker completely losing his mind, attacking Adam Pearce with such brutal, unrelenting violence that even hardened wrestling veterans are calling it the most disturbing incident they've ever witnessed in their careers. And here's what's going to make your blood absolutely boil: this attack wasn't even provoked. Adam Pearce was simply doing his job, trying to mediate a contract dispute, when Bron Breakker snapped like a rabid animal and turned a routine business meeting into a scene that looked more like an attempted murder than anything that should ever happen in a wrestling environment. The security footage shows Adam Pearce sitting calmly at his desk, reviewing paperwork, when Bron stormed into his office without warning or invitation. What happened next was 18 minutes of pure, unadulterated savagery that has shocked the wrestling world to its core and forced Triple H to make a decision that could forever change how WWE handles discipline and performer conduct. Bron didn't just attack Adam Pearce, he destroyed him. The initial spear that sent Adam crashing through his office door was just the beginning of an assault so vicious and prolonged that multiple WWE personnel are receiving counseling just from witnessing it. Tables were smashed, chairs were thrown, and Adam Pearce's body was used as a weapon against every piece of furniture in that office. The sound of Adam's ribs cracking under the impact of Bron's repeated power slams echoed through the hallways like gunshots, bringing security running from every corner of the building. But by the time they arrived, the damage was already done. Adam Pearce was unconscious, bleeding, and requiring immediate medical attention that may have saved his life. Hospital reports that leaked to wrestling journalists paint a picture of injuries so severe that Adam may never be able to return to his duties as WWE's on-screen authority figure. Multiple fractured ribs, a concussion so severe doctors are monitoring him for brain swelling, internal bleeding that required emergency surgery. This wasn't a wrestling angle gone wrong, this was an attempted homicide. And the most infuriating part: Bron Breakker showed absolutely zero remorse during the entire incident. Security camera audio picked up him laughing as Adam writhed in pain, actually celebrating the destruction he was causing to a man who had never done anything to deserve such treatment. The pure evil on display was something you'd expect from a psychopath, not a professional wrestler. Triple H's decision to fire Bron came exactly 47 minutes after viewing the security footage, making it the fastest termination in WWE history. Sources inside WWE headquarters report that the game was so disgusted by what he witnessed that he couldn't even finish watching the entire attack before making his decision. The man who has seen every form of violence in wrestling was literally sick to his stomach watching what Bron did to Adam Pearce. But here's where this story gets even more shocking. Triple H didn't just fire Bron Breakker, he had him arrested. WWE security held Bron in the building until police arrived, and he was charged with aggravated assault, destruction of property, and making terroristic threats. The wrestling world has never seen anything like this level of real-world consequences for in-ring or backstage behavior. The arrest footage shows Bron being led away in handcuffs, still smirking like he had accomplished something to be proud of. Even as police read him his rights and WWE officials looked on in horror, this absolute monster showed no awareness of the gravity of what he had done or the life he had potentially destroyed through his uncontrolled rage. WWE locker room sources report that the entire roster is in shock over both the attack and the firing. Veterans like Rey Mysterio and The Miz are said to be disgusted and terrified by Bron's actions, while younger wrestlers are questioning whether they're safe working in the same environment as someone capable of such unprovoked violence. The women's division superstars have been particularly vocal about their fear and anger, with several reportedly demanding increased security measures and threatening to walk out if WWE doesn't take decisive action to ensure their safety. The idea that someone could snap and commit such violence against a non-wrestler has created an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty that threatens the very foundation of WWE's work environment. But the most devastating aspect of this entire situation is the impact on Adam Pearce's family. His wife and children have been forced to watch their husband and father fight for his life in a hospital bed because of one man's inability to control his temper during what should have been a routine business discussion. The emotional trauma inflicted on innocent family members makes Bron's actions even more unforgivable. Medical experts who reviewed Adam's injuries are calling them life-altering and career-ending, meaning that even if he survives this attack, he may never be able to return to the physically demanding world of professional wrestling. 20-plus years of dedication to the wrestling business, potentially ended by 18 minutes of unprovoked violence from someone who should have been a colleague and friend. The wrestling community's reaction has been swift and unanimous, complete condemnation of Bron Breakker's actions and overwhelming support for Adam Pearce and his family. GoFundMe campaigns to help with medical expenses have raised over $200,000 in just 3 days, showing how much respect and affection the wrestling world has for Adam and how absolutely horrified they are by what happened to him. Independent wrestling promotions are already announcing that Bron Breakker is banned from their events, with many stating that anyone capable of such violence has no place in professional wrestling at any level. This isn't just about WWE making an example. This is about an entire industry rejecting someone who has proven he cannot be trusted in any wrestling environment. Legal experts are predicting that Bron could face serious prison time if convicted on all charges, with some estimates suggesting he could be looking at 5 to 10 years behind bars. The severity of Adam's injuries, combined with the premeditated nature of the attack and Bron's complete lack of remorse, could result in the kind of sentence that would end any possibility of him ever returning to wrestling. But here's what makes this situation even more enraging: the warning signs were apparently there all along. Multiple sources within WWE are now coming forward with stories of Bron's increasingly erratic behavior, his violent outbursts during training sessions, and his complete disregard for the safety and well-being of his fellow performers. Training partners report incidents of Bron deliberately using excessive force during practice matches, injuring fellow wrestlers and showing no concern for their welfare. One anonymous WWE performer described working with Bron as like wrestling with a time bomb that could explode at any moment, indicating that this attack on Adam Pearce was the culmination of a pattern of dangerous behavior. WWE management is now facing serious questions about why these warning signs were ignored and whether they could have prevented this tragedy through earlier intervention. The company that prides itself on performer safety and professional conduct allowed a dangerous individual to remain in their employ until he nearly killed one of their most respected officials. The financial implications for WWE are already becoming apparent, with sponsors reportedly expressing concern about being associated with a company where such violence can occur. Stock prices have remained stable so far, but analysts are watching closely to see whether this incident affects WWE's corporate partnerships and television deals. Insurance companies are also taking notice, with some industry experts predicting that WWE may face higher premiums or additional safety requirements as a result of this incident. When an attack this severe can happen in a corporate office setting, it raises questions about security protocols and risk management that could have far-reaching financial consequences. The most heartbreaking aspect of this story is watching Adam Pearce's friends and colleagues struggle to understand how someone they worked alongside could be capable of such violence. Wrestlers who considered Bron a friend are now questioning their judgment and wondering if they ever really knew the man who nearly killed their colleague. WWE's counseling services are reportedly overwhelmed with wrestlers seeking help to process the trauma of knowing they shared locker rooms and training facilities with someone capable of attempted murder. The psychological impact on the entire WWE roster cannot be understated, as everyone grapples with the reality that their workplace is apparently not as safe as they believed. Bron's family members have remained silent since the attack, with sources close to the Breakker family reporting that they are devastated and ashamed by his actions. The wrestling legacy that Bron inherited from his father Rick Steiner and uncle Scott Steiner has been permanently tainted by his decision to use violence against an innocent man who was simply doing his job. Wrestling schools and training facilities across the country are now implementing new psychological screening procedures designed to identify potentially dangerous individuals before they can hurt anyone. Bron's attack has forced the entire wrestling industry to confront the reality that physical training without proper mental health support can create dangerous situations. The international wrestling community has been equally outraged by Bron's actions, with promotions in Japan, Mexico, and throughout Europe issuing statements condemning the attack and expressing support for Adam Pearce. The global nature of the wrestling business means that Bron's reputation is destroyed not just in America, but worldwide. Social media platforms have been flooded with messages of support for Adam Pearce and his family, along with expressions of disgust and anger toward Bron Breakker. The hashtag Justice for Pearce has been trending globally for 4 straight days, showing the depth of feeling in the wrestling community about this unprovoked attack. But the most shocking aspect of the aftermath has been the discovery that Bron apparently planned this attack in advance. Text messages recovered from his phone show him discussing his anger toward Adam Pearce with associates, including statements about teaching him a lesson and showing him what happens to people who disrespect him. This premeditation transforms what might have been considered a momentary loss of control into something far more sinister, a calculated assault designed to inflict maximum damage on a man whose only crime was doing his job professionally. The evidence suggests that Bron spent days or possibly weeks planning how to hurt Adam Pearce as severely as possible. Security experts hired by WWE to review the incident report that Bron's attack showed signs of planning and preparation that indicate this was not a spontaneous outburst but a deliberate attempt to cause serious bodily harm. The systematic nature of the violence, the targeting of specific body parts, and the duration of the assault all point to someone who had thought carefully about how to inflict maximum damage. Legal analysts are suggesting that this evidence of premeditation could upgrade the charges against Bron from aggravated assault to attempted murder, which would carry a much more severe sentence and completely end any possibility of him ever returning to wrestling. The difference between a crime of passion and a calculated attack could literally determine whether Bron spends years or decades in prison. WWE's legal team is reportedly cooperating fully with law enforcement, providing all security footage, witness statements, and any other evidence that might help ensure Bron faces the maximum possible consequences for his actions. The company that once prided itself on handling disciplinary matters internally has made it clear that some actions are too serious for corporate punishment and require criminal justice intervention. The impact on WWE's corporate culture cannot be overstated, with employees at every level reportedly requesting additional security measures and expressing concerns about workplace safety. When a company's own authority figure can be brutally attacked in his office, it creates an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty that affects everyone from wrestlers to administrative staff. Triple H's decision to fire Bron immediately and cooperate with law enforcement has been praised by wrestling industry observers as exactly the right response to an unacceptable situation. The game's reputation for toughness and discipline has never been more important than in this moment, where his handling of the crisis will determine whether WWE can maintain the trust of its performers and audience. But the most infuriating element of this entire situation is Bron's apparent belief that his actions were somehow justified. Jailhouse interviews with local reporters show him maintaining that Adam Pearce had it coming, and refusing to acknowledge the severity of his victims' injuries or the impact on Adam's family. This complete lack of remorse or insight into the consequences of his actions suggests that Bron may be dealing with serious mental health issues that were never properly addressed during his time with WWE. The combination of physical strength, emotional instability, and access to potential victims created a dangerous situation that ultimately exploded into near tragedy. Mental health experts who have reviewed the case are calling for mandatory psychological evaluations for all professional wrestlers, arguing that the combination of physical training, competitive pressure, and performance-enhancing substances can create dangerous psychological conditions if left untreated. Bron's case may become the catalyst for industry-wide changes in how wrestling companies approach performer mental health. The ripple effects throughout the wrestling business are already becoming apparent, with several promotions announcing new safety protocols and disciplinary procedures designed to prevent similar incidents. The idea that a wrestler could attack a non-wrestler with impunity has been shattered, potentially changing how the entire industry approaches backstage conduct and conflict resolution. Insurance companies that provide coverage for wrestling events are reportedly reviewing their policies and considering whether additional safety measures or psychological screenings will be required for future coverage. The financial implications of Bron's attack may force wrestling companies to implement changes they might otherwise have resisted. Independent wrestling veterans are sharing stories of their own encounters with dangerous performers, creating a broader conversation about how the wrestling business has historically handled individuals who show signs of violent or unstable behavior. Bron's attack on Adam Pearce is being seen as a wake-up call for an industry that may have been too tolerant of concerning behavior in the past. The legal precedent being set by this case could have far-reaching implications for how wrestling companies handle disciplinary matters in the future. The combination of criminal charges, civil liability, and immediate termination creates a new standard for consequences that may deter similar behavior from other performers. But perhaps the most devastating long-term consequence is the impact on Adam Pearce's ability to continue his career in wrestling. Sources close to the Pearce family report that even if he makes a full physical recovery, the psychological trauma of the attack may prevent him from ever feeling safe in a wrestling environment again. The loss of Adam Pearce's expertise and leadership would be a tremendous blow to WWE and the wrestling business as a whole. His reputation for fairness, professionalism, and genuine care for performer welfare made him one of the most respected authority figures in wrestling history, and Bron's attack may have robbed the industry of one of its most valuable contributors. WWE's roster is reportedly struggling to process not just the violence of the attack, but the randomness of it, the fact that someone who seemed normal and professional could suddenly become capable of such extreme violence. This uncertainty about who can be trusted has created an atmosphere of suspicion and fear that may take years to overcome. The women's division has been particularly affected, with several superstars reportedly requesting that they never be left alone with male wrestlers they don't know well. The realization that physical superiority could be used for violence rather than entertainment has fundamentally changed how some performers view their workplace relationships. Bron's attack has also raised serious questions about WWE's hiring and screening processes, with critics arguing that better psychological evaluation might have identified warning signs before he was placed in a position where he could harm others. The company that prides itself on sports entertainment excellence is now being forced to confront the possibility that their talent acquisition process failed to protect their employees. Training facilities across the country are implementing new safety protocols designed to identify and address potentially dangerous behavior before it escalates to violence. Bron's case has become a cautionary tale that is literally changing how future wrestlers are trained and monitored for signs of instability or aggression. The international wrestling community continues to express shock and disgust at Bron's actions, with many commenting that such violence would be unthinkable in their wrestling cultures. The incident has damaged not just Bron's reputation, but potentially American wrestling's reputation for professionalism and safety in the global wrestling community. Social media platforms have become forums for sharing stories of Adam Pearce's kindness and professionalism over the years, creating a stark contrast with the violence he suffered at Bron's hands. The outpouring of love and support for Adam has been matched only by the universal condemnation of his attacker. But the most shocking revelation may be yet to come, as investigators continue examining Bron's background for signs of previous violent behavior that may have been overlooked or covered up. Sources suggest that additional victims may come forward with stories of abuse or intimidation that could result in additional charges. The possibility that Bron's attack on Adam Pearce was not an isolated incident but part of a pattern of violent behavior would make this situation even more horrifying and could result in criminal charges that would ensure he never sees freedom again. Wrestling fans and industry professionals are waiting anxiously to see what other revelations emerge from the ongoing investigation. This case has already changed how wrestling companies approach backstage security, performer screening, and conflict resolution, but the full impact may not be known for years as the industry grapples with the reality that their workplace can be just as dangerous as any other when proper safeguards are not in place. Bron Breakker's name will forever be associated with the attack that forced wrestling to confront its own vulnerability to violence. The tragedy of this situation extends far beyond one man's career or one company's reputation. It represents a fundamental breach of trust between performers and management, between colleagues and friends, between an industry and its audience. The wrestling business has always been built on the premise that its violence is controlled and its performers are professionals, but Bron's attack has shattered those assumptions in ways that may never be fully repaired. The question now is whether the wrestling industry can learn from this catastrophic incident and implement the changes necessary to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again, or whether Adam Pearce's suffering will be in vain and the business will continue operating under the dangerous assumption that physical training and competitive pressure don't require corresponding mental health support and violence prevention measures.